everyone, this is day 4 of Unit 1. We are getting squared away with doing distance today. So we are going to be taking 2 points and determining the distance between the 2 points. Okay, so a review of x and y values and going from there. So if you've been absent or if you've been out, this is a great way for you to review the information from day 4. All right, so a big thing you want to look at is this distance formula. Now, what do these little numbers attached to them mean? Okay, so x2, y2 is meaning the second point that is listed, and x1, y1 is the first point that is listed. So that's how we show that we are subtracting the x values and then squaring, and then we are subtracting the y values and then squaring. Make sure on yours you emphasize the plus in between, and then the very last step that you will do is the square rooting of the entire thing. So we have 2 points on the graph, and we are going to be finding the distance between them using this formula that we've been talking about. The other thing is distance on a number line. So instead of putting it into a square root, because we don't have a y value, we would simply do x2 minus x1 in an absolute value. Okay, and when something is in an absolute value, let's say the answer is negative a, it comes out to becoming positive. Let's say that your distance was already positive, so it also comes out positive because distance has to be positive. So your distance has to be a positive number, okay? So that is very important to remember when you are solving and answering these questions about distance, okay? Can distance be a decimal? Yes. Can distance be a fraction? Yes, I can go half a mile, okay? Distance can be a decimal or a fraction. Good. Or a whole number, okay? Just cannot be negative. All right. So now let's look at these numbers. So x is negative 1. And I'm going to subtract it from y, which is 7. So negative 1 minus 7 is negative 8. And when it comes out, the answer is 8. If I use my number line, if I move from x to the y, let's count the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The distance is 8. Okay? All right, the next one, wz. So I have negative 5, and then I'm going to z minus 4. I'm finding the difference between them. I would get negative 9. When it comes out of the absolute value, it becomes positive 9. All right, I want you to try c of yw. All right, for c, you are starting off at the 7, and I'm going to the negative 5. Again, I have to find the difference between them. So when I'm trying to find the distance, so 7 minus a negative 5. Now these two negatives are in a row, which makes it a positive. 7 plus 5 becomes 12. The absolute value of 12 is also 12. Okay, so when you're on a number line, you write it in the absolute value. Now let's try the distance between the following points. Let's write down our formula. So the square root, x2 minus x1 squared, plus y2 minus y1 squared. So we're going to subtract and square, add, and then square root. It's important to set it up so you can get full credit on your assessments and your homework. So please make sure you do that. So P, we're going to just identify it as x1, y1 as the first point that's written. And Q is x2, y2, which just means the second point that's written. I'm going to make my square root, my squareds, my parentheses, and my plus. So I like to set it up before I plug things in So I kind of make the frame of the formula before I know what I'm plugging in. So let's write down x2, which is -3, minus, and what is x1? That is +3. Again, for the y values, y2 is 13, and I'm going to subtract that from 5, which is y1. So we wrote down the problems on here. We wrote down the numbers, and now let's solve it. So -3 minus 3 is -6 squared, plus 13 minus 5 is 8 squared. From here, -6 squared is actually a +36. Make sure you put it in parentheses when you put in the calculator. Plus 64. So I subtracted each of them separately. I squared them, and now I'm going to add them. So the square root of 36 plus 64 is 100. When I square root that into the calculator, I get the answer of 10. Okay, and why is that? Because I have two 10s. 10 times 10 gives me 100. If I have a pair, it can come out of the square root. All right, number 3, x1, y1, I'm labeling. x2, y2, because my points on a graph are x, then y. So I'm labeling them so that I know the difference between them. All right, now I'm going to do x2, which is 0, minus a -4. Because I went from the x2 to the x1, and then plus my y2 is 15, minus a -7 squared. So what do we need to be careful with this? When I have two negatives in a row, I need to be very careful how I'm solving this. So 0 minus a -4 is 4 squared. 15 minus a -7. So what is that squared? So we subtracted them, and then we are going to now square them each. So we have 4 squared, which is 16, and then 22 squared. So 22 times 22. Let's put that in the calculator. That's 484. Now we add those together before we square root it. So 484 plus 16 is 500. Okay, so if I square rooted 500, I'd get 22.36. Now we don't want to, when we want to simplify the radical, okay, we don't want to have a decimal in place for these. So simplifying is a little bit of what you saw last year. So 500, well, how can I split that up? Well, that's 5 times 100. And then 5, the only thing that goes into 5 is 5 and 1. So we stop when it's called a prime number, which means that it's a number. It can only be multiplied by that in itself. Let me get rid of this. Goodbye. Okay. And 100, well, we can split it up in different ways. We can do 10 times 10. Let's just do 25 times 4. Okay. And then how can I split up 4? Yes, 2 and 2. Oh, there we go. We have a pair. And then with 25, what multiplies to 25, 5 and 5. And then I have another pair. So what we can do is if we have a pair, it comes out of the radical. And if it's not a pair, it stays in the radical. So my final answer, 5 times 2 is 10, root 5. So again, if it doesn't have a partner, it stays in the house. And if it does have a partner, it goes out of the house, out of the radical house, as I call it. All right. Okay, so I want you guys to try number 4, setting it up. So if I have x1, y1, and if this is x2, y2, plug it in and solve it. All right, here's number 4. So being careful about x2 minus x1, so 0 minus 1 for the x's. And then y2 minus y1, 1 minus 0. So being careful with the x's go together in this parentheses by subtracting. And then the y's again together in one parentheses and subtracting. Negative 1 squared is 1. 1 squared is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. And nothing goes into 2 except for 1. So my final answer is the square root of 2. I don't have any pairs of anything to take out, so then I'm done. All right, for this next one, for number 5, we have to look to see about our graphs. So we're going to have to look at the graph on number 5 and solve it. So let me scrunch this in here. So I'm going to be graphing these and then seeing what we have. All right, so when we graph, we have x and y. So the x is this line right here, and my y is my line going up and down. So A is going over. A looks like it's going over 3. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to kind of outline it so it's easier to see. And then it's going up 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. My lines aren't perfect. So going over 3 and up 9, the x is first and the y is second. So A is 3, 9. And C, it just looks like it's going over on C. It's not going up or down, so it's going right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then it's at the 9. So that would be 9, 0. And then the B, it's going over 2. So the x is 2 and the y, 1, 2, 3. Looks like the y is going down 3. Okay, so over 3, positive 3, and then down 3 would be a negative for the y value. So x and then y. It's actually at the 2, 3. There we go. Over 2, down 3. All right, so now that we have our points, we're going to set them up for the distance for the segments, and then we will move along here. So A is 3, 9. That will be my x1, my y1, just means my first and second point. So A is my first point, and B is my second point. It could go the other way if you wanted to, just as long as your x's are together and your y's are together in the same order. So I have 2 minus 3. 2 minus 3. Those are the x's. Then I do the same with my y's. Negative 3 minus 9. There's a minus in between. So 2 minus 3 is negative 1 squared. And negative 3 minus 9 is negative 12 squared. So negative 1 squared is 1. Negative 12 squared is 144. When I add it together, I get 145. Now I have to see what goes in to 145. So it ends with a 5, so I know that 5 can go in. So 145 divided by 5 is 29. So we've got 5 and 29. I don't think anything can go into 29. 3 can't, 6 can't, 5 can't, 9 can't. So yeah, the square root of 145. Now can a 3 go in to 145? Nope. So this is so I can't simplify it. There's no pairs of numbers that go into 145. So then there you go. That's my final answer. Now let's do AC. We can go a little bit faster now. So A is 3, 9, x1, y1, and my C is 9, 0, x2, y2. So I'm going to set it up, and you guys can finish it up. So my x values are 9 minus 3. So these are my x values, and now my y values. Now I add them together. So I subtracted, I squared them both, and now I'm going to add them together. So 36 plus 81 is 117. And it's an even number, so it can't go into 2. So I'm going to try 117 divided by 3, which is 39. 39 and 3. So if you ever need to pause a video, feel free to, so then you can get caught up on any of the work. It does help to listen while you're learning this. Kind of helps with getting all the information down. So there's a pair of 3s, so that can come out. And 13 doesn't have a partner, so 13 stays in. And so my answer is 3 root 13. All right, so we're going to work on number 6. Number 7, you can ask your teacher about number 7 if you want to. Here's number 6. Paul and Susan are standing outside City Hall. Paul walks 3 blocks north and 2 blocks west, while Susan walks 5 blocks south and 4 blocks east. If City Hall represents the origin, find the distance of Paul and Susan's new locations. So I'm going to just actually use this north, east, south, and west. I'm going to use it as my compass for me to make these points. So City Hall is right here. That is the origin. Now I need to figure out where Paul is. Paul is 3 north, 1, 2, 3, and 2 blocks west, 1, 2. So so this is Paul, and he went left 2, so that's negative 2, and he went up 3, and that's y. Remember x and y. X is left and right, and y is up and down, north and south, and then x would be west and east in this situation. So if that helps, you can write that info down. And then Susan walks 5 blocks south, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 4 blocks east, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4, 5, 4, negative 5 would be Susan. So we need to figure out the distance. You can determine whether Paul is x1, y1, or if Susan is x1, y1. Or x2, y2, it's up to you. I'm just going to go 4 to negative 2. So 4 and a negative 2. Now remember, there's a subtraction sign in between them. So my x's are 4 minus a negative 2. And then my y's, negative 5 minus 3. And then we will solve. So 2 negatives in a row become a positive. I have 6 squared. Negative 5 minus 3 is negative 8 squared. I have 36 plus 64. Added together is 100, and the square root of 100 is 10. So this could be 10 blocks away. It's not really exactly a block if it is going at a diagonal, but the distance would be 10. So thanks for joining me, and have a great day.